Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 2:42, and I will call the meeting to order. A reminder for everyone to silence their cell phones and speak clearly into the microphone, and there's a on/off switch on the back if you need it. So we will start with the approval of the minutes. First, we have approval of the minutes from Wednesday, July 17. Do we need a motion to approve?
You need a motion.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes from July 17th.
Okay. Second. All right. And then all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the July 17 minutes are approved. Next, we have approval of the public notice meeting on Thursday, August 1. Motion to approve?
This is which
What?
meeting is this?
This was the site
The
visit?
site visit. Oh. Yep.
What? Oh, no, it's just, it's past August 1st, that's why I was like, what?
Do you have the minutes to look at?
I have a
So
sheet.
this should be the minutes, right? Here.
So this
That's
records.
right, yeah, approval of the minutes.
Yeah.
It should be approval of the minutes, but it's okay, right?
Okay, so it says public notice. All right, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes for Thursday, August 1, which was the site visit to Solary Park?
I move to approve the minutes to the site visit for Solary.
Thank you.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we approve the minutes for Thursday, August 1. All right, next up is public comments, allowing time for anyone to come forward with comments that may be associated with the public arts. And it looks like we do not have anybody present, so we will close public comments. Next up is the staff report and public arts contributions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone, for joining today in such short notice. But we wanted to discuss two things today. One is the public art contribution that we discussed before briefly, and that would be the mandatory contribution for new development. And the second thing would be the contribution as a mitigation to deviations of the code that we would like also to establish in the Land Development Code a minimum contribution. So let's start with the mandatory discussion. Our attorney, Juliana Ross, gave us some time ago a table showing the different cities in the state that have mandatory contribution. And that is the first table that you have, and that shows cities that have contribution for the public sector, for their own cities, and then from the private sector. Actually, we should be in the list too, because per our ordinance, 1% of any capital improvement project that the city does that does not relate to infrastructure, so any new building, the city does 1% of the value of the building should be donated to the public art fund up to a cap of $50,000. So, we have that situation as well. I provided a second list that only has the yeses for the private sector contribution. So that's what we are talking about, because this one on the public sector, it's already in the ordinance of the public art, so it's already codified in the Code of Ordinances. So as you see, if you follow the second table that only has yes on the two columns, it has, the first is what is the percentage that of the contribution. Some give a percentage and varies from 1%, 0.5%, and I think we have, we may have even a smaller one, We have 1.5% as well. So it varies, right, from different cities. We have 0.75 for the city of Tampa. But then we also have some other cities that approach it with a nominal contribution per square footage of the building. So we need to discuss what will be, if we move forward to propose a contribution, what would be the calculation, right, the criteria. The second thing is most cities propose a minimum, threshold, so that would apply, so that only projects that meet that minimum would be, eligible or would be required to contribute. So you see that Boynton Beach starts with a minimum of $250,000. You have others. Clearwater goes to $5 million for private developers, and $1 million in Coral Gables. So it varies again. So sure.
Can I ask a question to clarify? So when you say a minimum threshold, is this any project is held to this minimum, or it's projects that
Beyond
don't
this
meet
minimum,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Projects so this will be the threshold for the
For it
ordinance to apply.
Go, okay, into
So
effect. Got
if
it.
you have a project in the city of Boynton Beach of $200,000 valuation, you're exempt.
Okay,
300, 255, you're in. And then, so that is the other conversation we need to have. What is going to be the threshold in the city? Then,
I have a question.
sure.
The value, is that the cost, say, of a builder to build, or is it the value, like if a builder was going to build new homes, it cost them $250, but they were going to sell for $750?
No, usually it's the valuation of the building permit. It's not
okay.
the cost that they sell the product.
Okay.
So it's just the valuation of the construction. And usually, and we'll see in the exemptions, it does not apply to site plans. So it doesn't apply for the horizontal, the development of the land, right? Bringing the infrastructure, sewer, water, whatever, roads. It is just for the construction. In our proposal, we have a twist on that regard, and we can talk about that. And again, it's just a proposal. We have the threshold, and then most cities have a cap. Boynton Beach does not have a cap, so it does not cap it. So in their case, it's 1%. Everything above 250,000 that is not excluded, there is no cap. So it's going to be 1% of the total valuation. Most cities provide a cap, and in our capital improvement, projects contribution, we have a cap of $50,000. And then you have the exclusions. So what are the things that, like affordable housing, do we want to, if we want to stimulate affordable housing, we would not ask affordable housing to contribute. So, so this is the second sheet that I gave you, which has and it's something that staff discussed internally, and this is what we would like to, because it's easier to talk in concrete terms, right? Because, it's good to have the comparison with other cities where we are, right? So it's good to have that the table next to us. But what we discussed was so for the municipal participation would be 1%, as it is right now. For the private, we thought it would be too bold to start with 1%, so we thought 0.5%. This was staff, contribution. Or, because 5% would be of the valuation of the building. We wanted to exempt single-family homes that are done individually. So you buy a lot, you build a home. First of all, it's going to be hard to have, and we put the valuation at $2 million. Anything above that will be the threshold. usually a home doesn't value for the construction, $2 million. But we said, let's exempt, affordable housing, let's exempt single-family homes, let's exempt ADUs, so as accessory dwelling units. Again, would not even pass the valuation, but let exempt them. We also wanted to exempt parking garages, because that's something we want to stimulate in the city. So if you're going to build a parking garage, there is a public benefit of not consuming land for parking. So we would like to exempt those. Interior renovations as well, and reconstruction, if it's due to fire or natural disaster. We don't want to over-penalize a person that also is already under distress. And then school and churches. So these were the list, and we can discuss the list again. But what we discussed is, I don't see us right now having large subdivisions for single-family homes, but we have townhomes communities, right? So we said the threshold would be $2 million or 0.5% for building valuation, or $1,000 contribution per single-family lot in subdivisions with more than 25 lots. So if you have a small subdivision, you say, okay, you have a pass. 25 lot is threshold for us to require mini parks. So we thought that would be nice to match, And so if it's a larger subdivision, then you would contribute $1,000 per lot. And then we still put a cap of 50,000, and then with the exclusions that I already talked about. So this was something that we discussed. I said, well, I think it's reasonable. It's not very bold, but still would bring some money to the public art.
Can you provide insight as to why you, or not you, whoever decided on this proposition,
staff, yeah.
went towards percentage instead of the square footage rate?
Because, well, percentage is easier to enforce and apply. In increases with time, right? If we have a nominal value per square foot, we have to update that every year.
Right.
We can do that, but we would have to update that. It's more difficult, I think, to come up, what is this value, right?
Right. So when I'm looking at this, like, I see that if, say, a bajillionaire comes in here and builds a single-family home that costs a lot of money and is huge, they're exempt because it's a single-family home.
Yeah, we thought about that because we have one example in Winter Park of someone doing that, but it's really a one-off, right?
Right. But on the other end, anything that's over $2 million is costing this percentage, whereas a $2 million
In commercial.
in commercial is nothing. And that's when I fear we start punishing small businesses. Because building a $2 million building for a small business does not get you anywhere close to 12,500 square feet. It probably gets you like maybe 8,000 square feet around here. So that's why I love this square foot thing, because then you're definitely putting fees on giant projects that can afford it, like enormous homes and enormous build projects for private businesses as well.
But then, so your position is to also charge from single family?
I'm sorry?
It's also to charge for single family,
So,
based on square footage, because then
with
you.
a minimum square footage, right? Because this one down here, I'm looking at Coral Springs and Coconut Creek, and I haven't really gone further in here, but their minimum is 12,500 square feet, right? So if you're looking at a developer who's developing a ton of homes, you add all those homes up, like, that's going to be a lot more than 12,500 square feet. A big business
so for them, residential districts is excluded.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, so they are not, if you read, most of the cities would exclude single-family homes.
Gotcha.
The only thing that we thought is that townhome is a single-family home, but it's attached. And so it's usually a developer, right, doing, so.
Yeah.
So is that saying that we're considered, because I was having a hard time aligning the per single-family lot with where townhouses fit. So we're saying that we're defining a townhouse as a single-family lot for this purpose?
So here it doesn't say, so it would be also for detached single families, family homes with subdivisions greater than 25 lots. So townhomes are also, if they are fee simple, if they are sold, they also own the lot. So it's also subdivision. I don't see us having a lot of large subdivisions for detached single family, like another Kingsbridge, because we do not have land unless there is, we don't expect to have single family homes there, because this is very much downtown. So we are going to have most probably townhomes, which is denser, right? And so that's what I think. What we may have is more townhomes than single family detached. But that would also apply to single family detached as the way it's written here, and this is up to discussion. And I brought Deborah. I don't know if Ms. Pierre is the planning manager, and she had the opinion that residential should not be included, right? Or so we had.
I mean, I agree. I don't think residential homes should be.
Not even townhomes. But multifamily should be. Because that's where we're going to have the development in the city will come, for residential will come in the form of townhomes and multifamily.
I guess what I'm referring to is an individual who is building one single home.
That is excluded. Individual single family and duplexes
Yes,
are
but-
excluded.
A giant developer who is building a lot with 30-plus homes. That
That's-
should be included.
That's included.
Okay,
And our threshold was 25. We can increase that,
yeah.
but it's 25. If you're building a community with more than 25 homes, then you
Where did we get that number from?
the 25 homes, because it's already in the code. It's an exemption for mini parks.
Ah, gotcha.
If you have smaller subdivision, and so we have one coming at Lake Jessup that has 13 homes. These will be detached single-family homes. That they would not. It's a smaller, development. We have another one for, I think, 6 townhomes, right? At Magnolia, I think it's 6 or 7 townhomes. Again, would be exempt.
Feel free to,
But the Chelonian,
Anybody.
for instance, the one that brought, I think, well, we have Orleans Square that has 50 townhomes. They would qualify. And then Chelonia, I think, have 70 townhomes. They would qualify for this contribution.
okay. Going down the list, the parking garage, is there any is there any difference between parking garages that say charge for parking and parking garages that are just open to the public?
No, so none of them would qualify per the way it's written here. And the reason why we want to have parking garage so that parking is not consuming a lot of land. So we want vertical, structures for parking garage for multifamily, and
But do we want to encourage those that are not charging for parking? Like, is there anybody that doesn't charge for parking, I guess, other than a city-built garage?
lovely passive income.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going. Parking garages are pricey to build, but they make a lot of money. And it's a good business to be in, and I don't know that they should be excluded, because although I want to encourage parking garages, they're ugly, right? So adding some art to them.
Well, the requirements from the architectural will do that. And so I'll be very honest, right now, I see parking garages coming first for multifamily.
Okay.
For the density that multifamily will, allow.
But
I-
those wouldn't be charged. That's for residents, right? So
And
those,
if they are charged there, it's internal deal. We
right.
do not get into
I'm talking about
those.
places that like do public parking charging, right?
So we are not there yet.
Okay.
At this point, we are trying to attract them. I think at one point, right, in the future, this may change, but right now I don't see parking garages being built for, as a business, right, for commercial, just to sell the space or rent the space, lease the space for whatever, whoever is coming.
Who's going to build the one that I hear is going in by where they're, across from where they're building the new Ace Hardware? Like on the same side of the road as Townhouse Restaurant? That's what I heard. Heard there's a part, like where there's currently like a bunch of farm equipment.
Yeah, well,
there?
that is part of the master land use plan for the old downtown. There's nothing coming right now.
Oh, okay.
There is a conceptual plan, and on that area, there is the idea of bringing multifamily with a wrapped around parking garage. So the parking garage will be for, the apartments, and then if they want to get bonus for us, they would have to give a percentage for public use. Because now that's the other thing, we want to stimulate even private garages for apartments if they are in an area like the new downtown or the now old downtown, revitalized, we want them to provide also public parking for commercial use in that area.
How long, the code we're talking about, it's, I don't remember what it's called. This is,
The horizon of the code?
no, this new code is for like development, right? For like development over the next, sorry, is this
So
the
the
new?
horizon of the code, this is for development as soon as it's approved,
Uh-huh, but how long is this new code supposed to be for?
for whenever the city wants to change it, or whenever we have a new comp plan, we have to update the code.
That's what I meant, the comp plan.
The comp
How
plan
long
is
does
for
that run?
2045, but this is not the comp plan. This is the LDC. This can be amended at any time.
Oh,
as the
okay.
comp plan. But this can be amended, in 2 years, 3 years. Usually it's small amendments to things that,
Mm-hmm.
the city, is dynamic, the conditions change, and council or staff wants to do an update, and they can change.
Okay. Did anybody want to talk more about parking garages? I was just going down the list.
No, I just have a question on the exclusions, but not parking garage.
So let me go back first to say, are you comfortable with requiring a mandatory contribution? Because that's the first thing, right?
In general, not to say yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but not at this threshold.
Well, so, okay, so
Yeah,
that's the
exactly,
first
in
line.
general.
In
In
general,
general,
yes.
yeah.
I'm not sure I like a lot of the details here, but I think it's good to encourage public art, so.
And you're comfortable with the idea of having a mandatory contribution?
I do, but
Okay,
one, I know you're a small business person, so she has empathy for that.
can you
Which is-
switch on your,
which-
sorry.
I know Jillian has empathy for small businesses. I don't know a whole lot about small businesses, so I defer to your judgment there. But in residential, who's going to pay that $1,000? Eventually, it will be the consumer. $1,000 houses must be, I don't know what houses cost in Oviedo anymore, a new house. They could be God knows what money. But a townhouse, I would imagine, is less expensive than a single-family home, so it's for a more affordable housing, correct?
Question mark, right, on
Yeah.
that? Because
You would think.
City Place, I think the last unit, and it's completely sold out for a while now, was in the 800.
Oh,
So, but it's,
Man.
over there, it's three, it's one property with three different units. So it has a commercial ground floor, it has
Yeah.
a brand-new townhome, and in the back, on top of the garage, there is an apartment unit that you can rent. So that's why
So this
it's
is the,
800.
Baldwin Park.
Baldwin Park has a
Well,
similar
anyway, just to
situation.
remind ourselves that all this gets paid by the people who buy the houses.
So we are excluding affordable housing.
What is
So
the
if it's
threshold
affordable,
for
it,
affordable?
so affordable, the state defines, and I think it's between 80% and 120% of the medium, so it's not really very low, the affordability level that the state establishes. And, but for us, it has to be a project that commits to be affordable, right? It's not just my rent is good. It has to be committed to be affordable, and so there is a process for that. You have to either by deed or you have an agreement for to lock that project as affordable for a number of years. And for those, we want to give the exemption. And again, everything here is a proposal.
Right.
So the $1,000 is a proposal, and everything here can be fine-tuned, right, to whatever. And we can make, the $1,000 contribution for subdivision greater than 25. So let's use All-In Square. They actually contributed $25,000 for the public art as a mitigation. But if they were to be under this standard, they would have to contribute $50,000. So they would reach the cap because they had 50 units. Chelonian would be above the cap. So they would also have to contribute 5,000. And,
Are you talking about the development behind the Chelonian?
yeah.
Okay, because Chelonian itself hasn't been sold.
Chelonian now owned the land behind it.
Right, but the yellow building is still for sale.
The yellow building, yeah.
Okay.
That's now a lot, a commercial lot
Yeah.
in this larger development. But behind, they are building 70 units. So they would reach also the cap if we put $1,000 contribution per lot. And anything that is nominal, anything that is nominal, we'll have to say that the code the fee schedule of the city has to kind of update,
I would think for the distinction of the per lot, I think that single family is confusing. Like if I were a builder, I would take that to literally mean a detached single family home. So maybe we would want to say building lot to encompass townhouses too.
No, that one here is for detached and attached.
But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't see myself as having, if I were building attached homes, I wouldn't see it as being included in that 1,000 per single-family lot.
A townhome?
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
we can put
unless we defined
attached
it.
and
Yeah.
detached. Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
I've got a question about exclusions. So I know there's a lot of tax exemptions for churches, but what is our reasoning for excluding churches from contributing?
It's also on the list of other places that have excluded. So churches and schools are exempt from other municipalities.
Even profit-making schools?
What's that?
Even for profit schools? Even for profit schools
We
like
usually
Goddard
give the same
and
treatment for schools in general. It's
as a general courtesy?
public and private. Yeah, because
service to the community.
Yeah, it's education, you know. I'll be very honest, I asked the same question on churches, so because some churches,
Yeah.
you know, are, but I think it's also, it's-
And
American
schools
habit.
go through their own building permit process. They don't even come through the cities.
the public.
Yeah, the public schools do,
public
so we
schools.
wouldn't see it
Well, the public
anyway.
schools is another
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I'm talking
Public-
about for
but the-
profit. These are businesses just like Jillian's.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally don't think churches should be an exclusion, or for-profit schools should be. Although many, for-profit is a tricky word. Private schools, because they're probably still nonprofits, but that is
Well, I don't think, like the
messy
Goddard
word.
School is even pretending to be anything but for profit.
Yeah.
It just,
We can remove churches, I mean,
From a legal standpoint, I recommend keeping churches in the exclusion. My microphone's not working, sorry.
Can you provide insight as why?
I think even if it's technically not running afoul of the law, you're going to open up some potential issues that you just don't want to mess with. It's not worth it.
only one city I can see that has exemption to churches here, and that's Homestead.
What's that?
Only one city
Has excluded?
has excluded, I'm going through and I see here, it's Homestead it's not, there is no page here.
I guess my big reasoning for not wanting churches on here is because I see a lot of construction by churches locally with a lot of extra funds, and it seems like a strange thing to exclude. And also, if we're going to put churches, we should change it to religious institutions.
I think they have churches and places of worship.
so what if somebody said their house was a place of worship? Like, would there also have to be other criteria that they
That
would
might be what
meeting?
Juliana is suggesting.
So an individual home would not have to pay, right? And if you are in a subdivision, then the developer will pay before.
Okay.
So will pay by the lot, right? Not for the, I'm going over to see if there are other,
Palmetto Bay is religious
Also?
facilities.
It seems like there's quite a number that don't exclude them.
Palmetto Bay had what? Oh, Village of Palmetto Bay. Religious facilities, yeah. Yeah, so two, right?
What if they, their religion disagrees with the art you're selecting, or, it's just,
Well, but that could go across anything. You charge McDonald's $1 million and say their owner doesn't like the art we put up. Why does that have less say than a religious institution saying that?
because public art is public speech, is government speech, is a function of government speech, so when you're using funds for the purpose of government speech, then the United States Constitution, I believe the state as well, says that you can't use public funds, you can't force a religion to pay money to promote a certain government speech. Or to endorse a certain message. So that it just could open up some potential issues, and might get more challenges from the private developers. And one thing you don't want to do is run into a situation where you're getting challenged, especially if this ends up being characterized as a tax. Now you're taxing, so, because, anyway, that's just my thoughts. I think it's ultimately up to city to decide that.
So I understand the tax precedent, and I understand the risk of challenging that through this avenue, but I wanted to ask about it. Right? I mean, I get how this could bubble up. So, just because we've always done it that way.
And it's interesting here because in the special notes, a lot of cities, I think, and we'll have to check their ordinances because it's given the number of ordinance, notes that more than 300 communities throughout the U.S. have implemented public art programs like that. It's just to the tax conversation, because we also have to kind of, this is another challenge, right? That people are going to say it's an exaction, so,
But are we just making exceptions for the people that are going to throw up the biggest fight?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a legal question. So I also had the same question, why are we, exempting? Because I can see public schools, even private schools, because there is this,
Because most of these seem like things, we're doing exclusions because we want to specifically encourage this kind of growth in the city. So affordable housing, duplexes, ADUs, parking garages, I mean, really everything else on the list. Education, encouraging more churches doesn't seem like a stance that a city ever should take because that gets a little hairy. So it just
I
seems
don't
like
think
the
that's what we
outstander.
are yeah. Well, we can think about the
Let's say
exemption.
not even churches, let's just say places of worship.
Places of
Because
worship,
this isn't
yeah.
targeted towards one.
No, not at all.
No.
Right.
No, but I'm saying that the city making exceptions for places of worship
Houses of worship.
also it just seems like it doesn't match the rest of the list.
So what would the first step, like, once we come out of this meeting, the first step is that we have it's the planning meeting that this proposal will go in
So
front of?
tomorrow, we have the Land Development Code Committee. So we are going to, whatever we comes as a consensus here, if we reach consensus today,
Yep.
that was the hope, right? Is to bring, this is the recommendation of the Public Art Board. Then we'll have, to kind of discuss with the Land Development Code Committee tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we have a meeting with the Land Planning Agency, and we're going to bring that as well. If we all have the same consensus, then it's going to be, be part of the draft of the LDC, and then we're going to take to council for a work session.
One thing I'd also add is not to put too much emphasis on what other cities have done, because cities get it wrong all the time. Cities screw up all the time, and they do things that are incorrect. You see it all the time. So just because other cities are doing it doesn't mean it's right, or doesn't mean it's correct, or even legal. So, think about what your recommendation would be, and then the legal aspect of it will be screened out at a different stage.
As we're discussing, it kind of brought up a question in my head, which was, who do we want to get this money from? And who do we not want to get it from? And I guess that's how we got to this exclusion list, right? So I think we're all, I will not speak for anyone else. I think we should get, like, if we're going to charge this money, it should be for giant development or, multi-million-dollar companies. Like when a McDonald's puts a new McDonald's in, they should put some art in the city, I don't know how everyone else feels about that. I agree that we shouldn't be adding this fee to individuals or families. I'm pretty passionate about not adding this fee to small businesses, which we are right now. So I want to see if we can take care of that. But I don't know if there's anybody else that anyone is thinking of that we want to make sure, for lack of a better word, isn't punished by this fee into like a situation that makes having a life harder.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just as the philosophy, not the details here, but the philosophy of how this would be constructed would be to do as little harm as possible to people that can least afford it. So that's part of the spirit of the affordable houses, But we also have small business owners who are having a hard time here, which, again, as I said, was not something in my world. But
So what we have is, how can we change? So the percentage we already dropped to, from 1%, that, it's the medium here in the other cities to 0.5%. Let's start with half and let's see how it plays. And then the other thing is the threshold. If you increase the threshold from 2 to 3, you're already giving a break to, $1 million. So what is 0.5% in 3 million?
$15,000. 15,
15.
yeah.
So doesn't,
I mean, for small business, that's a lot of money.
but is $3 million small business?
Yes.
How small is a small business of
My
3
sister just
million?
built her project.
Uh-huh.
So she owns the wedding barn, and that was over $3 million. And that, I mean, couple people run it. Their bills are crazy. Their rent is crazy, but, they're scraping by. So you add $15,000 to that up front. It's not $15,000 from someone who has it. You're talking about adding $15,000 to their loan, which doesn't end up being $15,000. It ends up being like $50,000 because you have to pay that loan and all the fees and all the percentages and the loan rates. It ends up being a lot more than that. So, because if it was just a straight $10,000, right, that they had extra, might be like, okay. I mean, I still don't like it, but
But my point is that, so, and we did not target companies, and, right, we cannot target McDonald's, right? But I don't know what was the valuation of McDonald's building at Chapman?
I think it's less than that, right?
That's what I'm saying. So we're
But-
exempting McDonald's too.
Right. And
So
we don't want
that
to
is
do that. So
the-
there's
so
a balance.
That's what I'm
But I
saying.
don't-
Where is because McDonald's are not huge in square footage, right? But still, they're not small business.
We could go for a
And-
small business definition as they're added to the exclusions.
I don't know if it reaches discriminatory, I don't know, right? If we say, so either we increase the, I don't know, if we,
Or we let the
We say
McDonald's
you would-
go and just go towards giant developments,
which, it's okay, but where are the giant development in
Yeah.
the city?
Right. I mean, anymore,
That's
is
true.
it
Right,
just
we
like
do not
meant to
have-
be like infill
Yeah.
almost?
We do not have the,
we missed our big chance with Publix.
Publix,
well, in Publix was.
That was a renovation.
It was not internal renovation, but it was
Yeah.
they
It was a new
demolished
building.
and
Yeah,
rebuilt.
that was a new building.
Yeah.
Can we make a definition for commercial? Like, can we say comparable to square footage, instead of square footage, that's going to have a volume of, like a traffic volume or,
I think it'd probably be
People come
easier to
through.
just, if we were going to do that, just because the United States has a definition for small businesses, and it's like, I think it's over 49 employees, you're no longer a small business. And so for McDonald's, they're not counting the workers in the store, they're counting like the company. Or for like developers, like giant developers, they're counting like all the people that work at the company. So that might be an easier way to go. It's really hard to put a mandatory fee on something.
That's why the first question was, are you ready for the mandatory, right? This is the beginning of everything, because all the other, we can resolve the others, we can
Right.
increase 3 to 4, 4 to 5, whatever.
Yeah.
Every time we increase, we are giving passes for the contribution. We can have range, we can say up to between, so we start charging from 2 or 3, whatever is the threshold, up to a certain amount is 0.25%. And then it's 0.5, this is math.
Yeah.
We can work with that. I think it's easier. First of all, I don't want staff to have to do stuff that we usually do not do.
Right, you don't want to add
What
extra
kind
work.
of business is that? We don't want also to be playing like a discriminatory, I don't have, for me, as a director, Deborah as a manager, we have the same treatment to every small business, medium business, large business, first timers, 10th time, it's the same. We apply the code, right? So, and we are not trained to do financial analysis and we don't want to go there. So it has to be kind of straightforward. Evaluation on a building permit, it's an easy thing because they have to do that because that's how they pay building permits. It's per evaluation of the building.
Right.
The Florida Building Code establish how to evaluate. The building official has a process of how to evaluate, and he has a table to compare. If you underestimate your value, they have a way to say, no, doesn't match my table. So they do already that. So that would be an easier way for us is to establish either the value or give it a different percentage to different ranges.
So I have a question under the participation, the 0.5% or 1,000 per lot. I'm sorry, how do we determine which it's going to be? Like, is that just proposed for us to pick from? Or
So subdivisions, because the issue is that a subdivision, usually someone subdivides the land,
Yep.
and then you have builders
Right.
building the homes. The homes individually would not reach $2 million in valuation,
right,
right? They may reach $2 million, and that's already a very good price in the end to sell, but not as a valuation for building permit. It's very rare to have a $2 million home as valuation. Townhomes, even worse, right? Because they are attached, they are usually smaller. But the scale of the project, so one is going to be a commercial business, someone that comes with a building
okay,
that is more than, let's say here, 2 million. 2 million, the rules will apply, or whatever is the threshold that we put here.
okay.
Subdivisions is when you do the subdivision. You would
I-
have to contribute.
I think I would vote for a lower amount per lot, because I think at 1,000, if that is, per unit, per single-family home or per townhouse, that will go right to the buyer, and I would vote for a lower amount for that, like maybe 500.
Which amount? Yeah, so let's discuss what amount.
Yeah.
Is everybody agreeing with that?
I don't know, because I
lower?
feel like literally every fee we have will eventually go to a buyer.
Yeah, of course.
Right,
So, and $1,000 on like a $500,000 home they're gonna sell that they built for 200.
Well, what we're saying is that's what it costs to live in Oviedo, this beautiful city with art all over the place, and it's your value of your land is going to appreciate at a higher rate because it's such a lovely, high-functioning city, and you pay for what you get.
Yeah.
Is a rationale.
And the other thing that we did not discuss is how to, let's say, we agree with the rules. We always have the option for the developer to include the art in their own area, right? In their own development. It has to be of a public view, right? It has to be, like the Arlington here,
Yeah.
that we can see, right? If it's in your home theater or in your clubhouse internally, then there is no point. But if it's in the common area that everybody can see, so they can always upgrade, their own development as well.
So it sounds like, we said we agree to the idea of a mandatory cost. It sounds like we've reconciled the exclusions, that the questions are around the minimum threshold and possibly the amount that we charge per lot. Is that fair?
Can I just ask about the places of worship as an exclusion or not?
I don't particularly want to. It sounds like that's not really an option.
It is it's your recommendation, what you all want to recommend. This is just your recommendation. This isn't a determination.
Because
that-
we're not talking about a small place of worship. We're talking about a place of worship
Right.
that can build a brand-new $2 million
Yeah.
building.
You're fully able to recommend removing that from the exclusion. This is your recommendation. You can recommend whatever you'd like. It's your time to have your input.
We need to argue for that in front of whatever councils this goes before,
If asked.
correct?
If it's just
asked.
not there, maybe no one will notice.
Some hopeful thinking there.
I doubt that. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
This is your recommendation to staff, what you think that it should, how this should be developed, and then we'll go from there.
I make a motion to remove churches from that number 7.
I will second that.
Can you second it to the chair?
And then what I
she's the chair.
understand is that if we,
No.
oh, can I second it? No. So what I understand, though, is that whatever we propose, that it is subject to feedback, revision, discussion.
So
Yeah.
What we
now we are
propose.
moving forward. So tomorrow, I'm going to take the recommendation that comes from this board today to the LDCC. If they buy the same recommendation, it's going to be their recommendation
Okay,
as well.
okay,
And then if the LPA agrees, it's going to be the 3 boards. If they don't, or they make amendments, right, then we'll have different recommendations.
And Dr. Correa, if they decide to remove places of worship, it's not going to show up on tomorrow's,
No,
at tomorrow's
we're gonna-
meeting. So
yeah.
you don't have to worry about that.
okay, and I'm sorry, I can't second that.
Yeah, well,
because
I'll
I'm the
second
chair.
it then.
Okay.
And then I do want to find a way to protect small businesses.
Can
So
I
do you
just
want to
ask
vote?
one more question for clarification? So the school, we're going to leave schools on there, but it's going to be public schools. So private schools, you all are recommending that they pay.
Well,
Was
for
it?
profit schools, there's nonprofit schools and there's for-profit schools. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference. That's a big difference.
But that's a legal term, and that gets really messy. So for example, IKEA is a nonprofit, and they're one of the most successful companies in the world.
But what are they doing with their profits? I
They're
mean,
giving it to
Advent
their-
Health is,
They're giving it to their CEOs. And like, it's, as long as you manage a nonprofit in a, like, clear way, there's no reason to not have a nonprofit except there's more rules.
Profit, I did not know that.
What you might want to do is come up with your recommendation altogether, like what you're going to change and do one motion to
Okay.
set forth your entire recommendation, if you're all on the same page with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so as an interim step, we're going to remove churches from the exclusion.
And places
We're
of
gonna
worship in general,
Places
right?
of worship, yes,
but that's out, so we don't have to say anything.
right. Just for our
Public
paper.
schools, we're going to add.
Public schools.
I'm also thinking of like nonprofit schools that should, like, are really like scraping by and trying to, like, they're not going to be able to build a $2 million building. But we can get to that in a sec. So I think it like weans out the ones that can't. You know what I mean? Like the smaller schools won't fall under this anyways.
Okay.
That's a good point. So are we talking about
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's why I think we should.
art schools and theater schools, and what are we talking about with schools?
Yeah, I don't know. So that was going to be my next question.
Gymnastic schools,
Right. So usually
right?
when
All
it
these
says school,
extracurricular.
like, it just means like K through 12 education, correct?
Was that your intention when you put the word school
Usually
in?
that's what it is for us, right?
Yes. Yes, it's K through 12.
Okay. trying to think of the type of school that, I'm just using Goddard. I'm not on to their case because I don't really know much about
Oh,
it,
my kid
except
goes there, it's great.
the buildings there, you know.
Yeah, no, but it's beautiful and it's
So
a
how much did
for-profit
that
place.
building cost? And that's it's a big company, isn't it? Isn't that a national,
They're a franchise
the
company, right?
franchise company? Okay. So I think they should pay.
Yeah.
And so then that's going to trickle down to your tuition. I mean, that's the truth of all of this. It's going to trickle.
Well, except, so I would like to protect small businesses, but a franchise is not a small business. Because
But it is to that franchise.
they have to pay franchise fees, so it's usually bundled in there. Like, it's like part of, and how they do their loans and stuff is different. They don't usually take the bulk of the money. They have to like do a deposit. Anyways, it's much more complicated.
Can I just back up for a sec? So are we in agreement on the cap of 50,000? Are we in agreement on that?
Seems fine to me.
Any concerns?
No.
Okay. So the minimum threshold for private sector, does that mean a business, or could that ever be an individual, like, we've talked about individual residences.
So I think what
It's it's
Dr. Correa said
excluded.
was
It's in the list of exclusion, right, individual?
Correct. Okay. Do we want to raise that, I mean, even to 3 million?
I mean-
To address some of your small business concerns?
I'd like to raise it to 5 million, but then you're like, okay, then what actually is counted here?
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know what. So we're kind of reducing the pool,
Yeah.
right, of contribution.
Yeah.
So, have we looked at a situation where we said, based on the plan that's in place and whatever is already approved, that if we apply this criteria to what's already on the books, say for what's going to be done in the next, 3 years, that would come out to what?
We didn't do that, so
Okay.
that because it's valuation of building,
Yeah,
so it's when, we only know the valuation when the building comes, right? It's the last stage of the, development.
Yep.
It doesn't count land purchase?
No. It's the
Just the
valuation of the building, because it's again, we did not get into that, and we don't want to get into
Yeah, yeah, it
stuff
gets
that
complicated.
usually we did not get.
I'm just trying to project, if we're talking, different numbers, like if we had a baseline scenario that said, based on this much development expected in the next X years, this would net us what have you, I know this goes to math, versus if we change this criteria, what it would look like. I mean, I could go
I don't think 2 million's bad, I just think there's some, like, small businesses that will get caught in the middle. And that's why I think doing an exclusion would be better. Maybe an exclusion for brand-new businesses or businesses with less than 10 employees.
Well, who's building besides brand-new businesses?
Ace Hardware isn't a new business, or like a McDonald's is not a new business. It's a new location. A franchise is not a new business, it's a new location.
But again, you run, so what is more palpable than dollar amount, right, of the valuation? Because you can have, I don't know, a very expensive business with 10, less than 10.
Parking
Right.
garage is a perfect example.
Yeah, or
one of these storage
or
unit companies.
self-storage,
Right.
right, that is huge, but doesn't have.
Well, I think this goes back to the time-old question of, do you want to protect the person that needs help, or do you want to make sure you?
No,
get the
but
thing.
it's hard to get the subsidy right. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
no, absolutely.
It's hard to get the subsidy, so either we say, okay, we're going to charge above 2 million or above 3 million, and we're going to have a range until 5, and then after 5 is the highest
Right.
percentage, or, I don't know, what is the, or, because I don't know if we can define what is a small business.
The SBA has a legal definition.
I know, but then it's something that we need to apply. I don't know how. If
Like we need to
staff
govern
has. That's the thing, because,
That doesn't seem like something that's harder to know than any of the other exclusions.
no, building valuation is already there. If
No,
you
no, I mean the
build something,
exclusions.
well, the exclusion is uses, that everything that we deal with, right? We
Mm-hmm.
deal with a parking garage, what is, affordable housing, you have to prove
Mm-hmm.
to even to show as affordable housing. Just telling me it's going to be a good rate, Teresa, doesn't make it.
Yeah, but then when someone's like filling out all their paperwork, you have like, are you a small business or not?
And then we have to prove, right? We have to do the research. That's the thing that I don't know, and I'm talking about because I don't know what it entails for us to make that valuation, that assessment. So I don't know.
So you're trying to make the management and the governance more as straightforward? for
Yeah,
what
to
you all have
easy to
evaluate.
apply, right?
Okay. Okay,
Did you have a suggestion then?
I don't know, because I really, if you raise to 3 million,
I would
that's the
be
help, but you said that
good to do that
you're
today.
using the example of the wedding barn.
That was including the land, though. I didn't realize
Was
that.
above or,
That included the land. she
That
said.
does include the land.
yes, and we are not talking about, we are talking about building valuation.
And that also
Building
includes.
permit valuation.
So, okay, so
It
in that
all-
aspect, are we also talking about, sorry, what's the word, when you clear land?
No.
No.
We are
so
not
it's
talking
just
about horizontal construction.
Just the building.
Building permits are based on the cost of the construction, of the vertical construction. The site is ready. The site may have cost, I don't know, the land, and we do not control it. Building permit, to issue a building permit, you pay the amount, based on the valuation of the building that you're going to build. And then the contractor usually gives that amount. So that's an easy thing that we have in our process. And so if you have that amount, so we are excluding other amounts, but it's just a fair way to, expensive buildings would bring, would be eligible. So I thought it was too much for the wedding barn to be 3 million. Oh boy, that was really expensive. But if that entails other stuff, the wedding barn would not be eligible.
Right. But, for example, my business is looking at buying a building. And we have seen so many come up on the market that are like 1.8 million, and they're like 4,000 square
So
feet.
the building's already there,
Yeah.
you're not paying.
And your
This is
renovation
new
isn't-
construction. You're
New
going to have
construction.
you have internal renovation.
So what happens where the old Ace Hardware is? They're going to build apartments or townhouses there eventually.
They would be
They're gonna have,
eligible.
Parking garage, that will be deducted.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to pay for that part of it. The rest of it they'll pay for.
If this is approved, yes.
Good. Excellent. I think these numbers are okay then. So the only thing that I think was a concern was the house of worships to be gone. And leave
And-
school, public schools?
Were we going to specify public schools?
What are your thoughts? It's an argument either way, right?
People need to send their, a lot of people like to send their kids to for-profit schools.
Well, there's a good argument, because maybe we're saying, like, these are the things we want to encourage. We want to encourage public school use.
Yeah.
So
Well-
there are some gray lines,
Yeah, I
I
don't
think,
know.
with the charter schools. Charter schools
Yeah.
are private, but they have the same treatment as public schools
Mm-hmm.
for the statutes, right? So that's why
Well, they're funded by the public money,
Department of Education.
But they are private, right?
kinda.
So that's the thing. It opens the door here.
Kinda.
So that's why if we put
They're public schools with different rules.
Kate, you know,
Yeah, but
So what
you're
if we
still
say-
gonna get complicated, because if you just say K through 12, all my kids are K through 12, and I am teaching them things. But am I a school?
no.
If
Yeah,
you
you
get
use-
your
What?
license from the Department of Education, then you
Yeah.
are. So
So-
that's
Okay.
a
Yeah,
public school.
you're not.
Is there any?
Interesting.
So that could be, so like St. Luke's, do they get their license from the Department of Education?
St. Luke's is not in the city.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure because they are outside, so I'm not sure where
If they
that's.
were inside,
I don't know what their classification, because
okay.
What about a daycare?
Daycare is not a school.
not a school.
Even if they offer VBK and kindergarten?
If they get a license from the Department of Education, then
Then
perhaps.
they're a school.
But
Okay.
I've never seen one that has that.
Daycares? A lot of
That's-
them have that.
With the kindergarten?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
It's been a long time.
I don't know if a lot of them have the kindergarten. I know the one my son goes to has a kindergarten.
Okay.
can we eliminate schools completely and houses of worship completely and just not have a number 7? And see what the next people say?
Well, public schools, we cannot charge.
No, not public schools, of course not.
I would not recommend removing public schools.
She was saying,
Yeah.
right,
You were saying delete number 7,
Right.
which would include the
Yeah,
public
public schools.
schools. Yeah.
So we do have to, we want to distinguish that public schools are an exclusion.
Yes.
I think we should say that.
Yeah, well, I think we have to. And I think we
Yes.
should
And
also.
we
So
wouldn't see it.
Homestead does
That's
exclude
going to
schools.
cause, if
Okay.
we put public schools, and even if we leave out house of worship, you just know this is going to be something that slows the process up for us. We can make that point and see what happens and go with the
Right.
flow
Right.
and see if that happens and stand our guns, or
We
we
do
can
have a
just say
courtesy
that's not as
review,
important.
but
More
they don't-
important
they
to
have
get
their
this
own
through
building
so we get
department.
money for
Understand.
art.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know where I stand right now.
Permitting.
I don't know. I feel like I'm always on the other side of the highway where I'm like, I'd rather
Yeah,
stand for the
that's
thing
true.
we think is right and take
That's
the time to do it.
Right. Okay, so,
And I keep trying to remind myself, there's not a ton of space left in Oviedo, so like,
correct.
maybe we don't need to worry so much about someone
We'll
building.
have redevelopment.
Oh, okay, so if someone like, for example, Publix, when they knocked it down and built it back up to the same
Where
building.
you going, yeah.
Or I think there's
God
even
knows they're wealthy.
some cases where people are starting to tear down some of the older houses and build, but we're saying that that's excluded.
Right, because that's their single-family home.
Okay.
Well, if they are rebuilding single-family homes, if they are, aggregating lots within adjoining
Right.
property and then building something else, they would be eligible.
Do you know how much that McDonald's was?
Now, it's not easy, it's not difficult to check, but I'll have to check with Bill Day.
So I guess I'm thinking that I would like to see, like, what could we get to agreement on to be able to put this forward and to get something in place and started. And then, once this is in practice and we have more information, like we see how this translates to for actual use, then we would evaluate any adjustments. 'Cause I-
That is always, it's true for
Yeah.
every regulation that
Right.
we do. We can always revisit.
Because I feel like this
later
is
on.
the hardest part, is getting it started.
And let me just remind, this is all recommendation to city council. City council may not be on board and
Right.
not recommend it or not, approve it, but
Right.
it's a recommendation at this point.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with just saying public school, delete house of worship, and leave the rest the same. I'm okay with the 2 million
Okay, and you're okay with the
I am.
1,000 per lot?
I am,
Okay,
I am.
okay. Jillian,
I'm thinking.
are you okay with the 1,000 per lot?
I'm okay with the 1,000 per lot.
Okay, so we're all okay on the 1,000 per lot and the 50,000
Yes.
cap. So,
And the exclusions with
Change it to public
number
school.
7 is just public schools.
okay. and
My
the
only
ex-
question is the minimum threshold. Because,
Of private,
what?
of the, for private sector.
Right, because also, in 10 years or 5 years,
Well, you can't, we can't, then we might as well put it
can't.
20 million, because God knows what's going to happen
right,
here.
right, but that's what I'm saying,
I
like,
bought my house for $120,000.
So I'm
in
sorry, because I was
1988.
trying to get into Navaline so that Deborah can research over there, the
Yeah.
McDonald's. So the $1,000 dropped to 500?
No.
No,
It's back up to
1,000.
1,000.
okay,
We're coming around to not
Yeah.
changing
Okay.
much.
not changing.
So we're keeping 1,000.
With a lot of discussion.
We're keeping the 50,000 cap.
The
ex-
2 million,
That we're still talking
Okay,
about. But the
okay.
exclusion, we're saying eliminate
places of
places of
worship.
worship and specify public school for the exclusion. And then we're coming back to
Okay,
the minimum threshold. So I could say this, I would not be comfortable jumping up to a $5 million minimum threshold without like a lot more information and like practical
I think
results.
understanding it's just the building, that doesn't make sense. I thought it was also everything.
The
Right.
whole shebang.
So does it,
So-
would it be significant, a significant enough assist? Like, we don't even know, how many people have applied to build 2 million versus $3 million buildings in the last year. I'm like, I have to do, like, quantify things a lot.
No, that makes sense, that'd be good
So-
information to have.
It would. But we don't have that today, and we want to get this in process, or if we don't, what happens? If we say we need to go away and research one of these thresholds, does this whole topic come back next month?
No, because now we are reaching it may come back as the public hearing process or in the work session with council. We still have time to research, to give more basis. I'm sure that this threshold will get all the apartments will qualify for
Right.
more than 2 million. And then we'll have to, I would doubt if, the hospital, that's another one. that,
Yeah, and
you
they're
know,
not deferred. They're not excluded.
They are not.
But they
'cause-
would be if we put places of worship. Because Advent
Hospital?
Health is a place of worship. They
It's
qual-
not a
this
place of
HSC
worship,
one
right?
is private.
It's not a place of
They
worship.
qualify everything as a church.
Do they?
In the ordinance, you have a definition section where you flesh out all the specifics of the definition.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this is in theory, your recommendation in theory.
This is,
Well,
the-
broader,
this is just a rough draft? Or an outline?
It-
How would you,
well.
It's a recommendation,
Yeah.
right? We're going to discuss, but, so other boards are going to.
Okay.
Get their feedback. So just understanding, so what if we said we wanted to put this forward?
What was that?
I know.
And people open the
Yes.
door over there.
That-
Oh,
Or
that we
sounded
upstairs.
like,
To make
Upstairs.
this recommendation at 2 million, and then what if next week we just got more data and we said, okay, we want to change that to 3 million? What would happen?
So either one of the boards, or we would propose to council
Yes.
based on the research
The
that
new
we
info.
did. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Alright.
yeah, just by way of comparison, if you look at the other cities, 2 million is the upper threshold, is the highest already, so.
there's some on here that say 5 million.
I think one is 5
Which
million.
is
It's Clearwater.
crazy.
one is-
Clearwater is 5 million.
They probably have a
For-
much bigger scale.
Well,
of what
probably a
could be
lot
done
more
there.
land too.
Right.
Yeah, because it's very spread out.
5 million, there's 500,000 for the CIP, and then, other than Clearwater, it's the highest, and then Largo has 2 million as well.
So what you're saying is that 2 million is already, just comparing to the other municipalities, it's a higher threshold. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, man. I'm thinking of everything that goes into a new building,
Goes
And I-
into a,
like into building a new place, like,
yeah,
because I just saw it happen. And I think $2 million when we're just talking about the building.
only the structure,
Only.
not the interior.
Well, no, if the construction company is like painting the walls and like that's in there, right?
The interior painting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that
not the
kind of stuff.
furniture.
With a
Not the
new
furniture.
building, yeah.
Not the furniture.
Now, if you're only painting, no.
If you're just doing interior.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're doing
So,
interior
but it's
renovation.
not the furniture, it's not like running electrical
It's
to,
just-
from the,
it's- No, it's for the purpose of building permits, the
So-
valuation.
Would the correlation be like when you get your insurance estimates? They talk about replacement value, but they talk about, well, they talk about structure and contents. But I mean, they really pare it down to,
building and stuff,
right,
Yeah.
Rebuilding, yeah.
right. So this is just talking about
the building.
building.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have consensus?
We
Right.
have consensus.
We changed
On
one thing.
Do we need to, do we need to vote?
Yes, does somebody, will somebody?
Wants to make a motion and explain what are the
motion.
things that
I
we
make a
changed?
motion that we accept this document with the exception of the exclusion number 7 to just say public school.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Motion passes,
Well.
right?
I mean, I think we know how we got here, and I think that if different elements come up at discussion in front of other groups,
And they will give their feedback. They'll have an interesting perspective, too.
right, but
Yeah.
now we'll know ours.
I bet
Now-
you the, oh, well.
Let me give you another one, but that's going to be quicker.
Mitigations.
Deborah, so this is, and you do not need to read everything, I'm going to point it out. So these are mitigations, so this is also part of the proposal for the code. So we want the code to be more detailed on how you can mitigate for deviations that the city can grant. Deviations to any quantifiable measure of the code, the city can grant, but requires a mitigation. And we want to have, so there are mitigations for site plans, and there are mitigations for architectural design orders. Now, mitigation number 11 on page 2 says public art. So the development will donate public or private, or provide semi-public art, including but not limited to sculptures or murals consistent with city policy on public art. The art may be installed on site or a contribution made to the public art fund. The minimum value of the public art to count as a site mitigation has to be a site or architectural design. Design mitigation is $5,000 for the art on site and for the art the contribution. So we are saying if you're asking mitigation, the mitigation has to be a minimum of $5,000 to count. So we are raising, because right now, because we do not have that guideline, we have a range of contributions. So we are establishing, a minimum amount. And I wanted to know, and then the amount may be updated every year for inflation.
How
with the
many
fee schedule.
mitigations can a new build have?
So,
Right, isn't it like credits or something?
no, so build, for architectural design order, because you can have several deviations, but we limit the amount of mitigation to 3. That's the maximum, you know. It depends on the highest level of deviation you're requesting. It's a percentage, so it's, if you have one deviation of 50%, it counts as 3. If you have 10 deviations and one of them has 50%, it counts as 3. You have to provide 3 mitigation, because it's one building. For site plans, that the mitigations are done separately, because you can, on a site plan, you can deviate from different stuff. You can deviate from setbacks, height, you can deviate, not height, you can deviate from setbacks, parking standards, the size of the parking, trees, buffer, width. So there are so many that we want any deviation to be taken care of, because sometimes there is a direct correlation between what you're mitigating with the deviation, right? So if I'm reducing the buffer, I said, oh, I may have, you know, a different tree requirement there, you know, but so it's a difference. So we can have multiple mitigations. Again,
This seems like double dipping to me. We're already making them pay. Like if it's $2 million project, they already have to pay $10,000 to the Arts Board.
well, they will have to provide mitigation anyway, and this is an option. They may say, no, we are not, it's not a requirement. So, see, we are number 11, there are 12 possible mitigations.
Oh,
So we are not saying that you have to do that. But if you do that, and remember, there are projects that are not, will not be eligible for the mandatory.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a small, this is for site plans, this is for anything in the city. So for instance, if McDonald's did not comply with the mandatory, it's still a site plan in the city. And if they had to mitigate a deviation, they could have offered, you know, a $5,000 contribution.
So this is like a menu that they can choose from?
They can choose
to
from. It's
say,
not,
we choose to do it via,
sometimes it's an easy way out because, oh, I sign a check, I'm done, right? But before, we would accept from 500. To date, we had 500 to 25,000.
right?
And it was up to the developer to establish the amount,
Good.
which is also fine, but it's, people sometimes challenge us. Why do you accept this? Why do I accept that? I said, well, because there is no guideline in the code.
So this is just saying that we would agree that 5,000, if they choose the public art mitigation, that 5,000 is the minimum contribution.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable with that, you can propose something else,
Okay,
a different amount, you know, that, again, this is a recommendation from staff, but
Yeah.
this is for discussion purposes. And we are taking that tomorrow as well for the LDCC.
so do we want to make a motion to accept the $5,000 minimum if a developer chooses the public art mitigation?
yes. I move to accept the $5,000.
Okay, second?
No.
No. Okay.
I think it's too high. I like how big developers can develop a lot of money if they want, so I also think it could like restrain us in that way. And I also think it puts us at some of the highest options on here.
No,
5.
charging stations, maybe
5
more
of them?
expensive.
How much I don't know how much those are.
Well, depending on where it's, you have to bring electrical, you have to bring, right?
Yeah.
None of them are, that's the other thing. Not giving an amount was an easy way out for a lower range, right? Because everything else would be more expensive. So let's see here. White sidewalks is not cheap, right? To provide more, you know, concrete. Mobility strategies is, then we have a whole other list that can be counted as well. Communities for a lifetime residential units, sometimes it's already provided by the developer, so it's any, if you have a unit on the ground floor, or if you have elevators, that will make easy for seniors to live there. We want to stimulate. That's a policy in the comp plan that we want to stimulate. So we grant you, if you have that, you can count that as a mitigation already. Low-impact development is super expensive.
What is that?
Low-impact development, so it's to have, exfiltration, so it's to have the, instead of having stormwater, is to have, internal underground capture of the water. Charging stations, depending on the location, maybe not, any site, amendment does not seem to be very cheap. Use of environmental friendly design, again, solar, these are nothing's cheap. But some projects already provide them. So if they already provide, we want to count those because that is stimulated by the comp plan. Health design solutions, the same. I mean, if you bring anything, community gardens, if you bring in internal circuit, so the hospital has that. They provided a circuit internally with markings for their employees. So if I want to walk 3 miles a day, and I know that walking through my pond, around my pond gives me so much, that's something we want to stimulate, or having outdoor exercise equipment. These are all things. So this is a pool of choices, and you choose whatever, and if you're already giving that, we grant you that too.
Can it be dependent on how big the project is? Like if it's under 2 million, it's this much, and if your project's over 2 million, it's this much?
So this one is different than, because it's, if you choose to pay, and you can reduce if you think 5,000 is too much. 5,000 would, our thinking is that would pay for something. So the opera, right, is at 5,000.
Yes.
A mural could be
Yeah.
5,000, right, if we could. So it could pay for one contribution. And this is not a subject of the conversation today, but in our public art fund now, with the opera that we want to fund, we are at
Yeah.
0, right? We are at, I don't know, we have low, balance, We don't right now because we haven't spent anything in the Wings of Joy, whatever, but we already have committed a good portion of the money that we do not have. So if we do not find ways to raise funds,
So this mitigation is to offset that the individual is not doing something the city deems important.
one of the minimum requirements of
Yes,
the
a
code.
minimum requirement.
So they can actually follow the code and
Yeah.
not be required
Yes.
to
do
provide
that.
any mitigation?
Ab-
So it's for
absolutely.
those ones who are choosing not to follow the code, and so in that case, they will be allowed to do some type of mitigation. Public art, in this particular instance, is not required. It's something that they can choose.
Right.
So if they choose to do it,
Yeah.
they know the costs associated with each one of these deviations.
Yes.
And they would get to choose which one they decide to follow.
And they're not doing something that we deem necessary, and they're probably saving money by not doing that, which is why they've decided not to do that.
That's where the catch is for me. And that's just because I know of some specific situations. For example, the wedding barn didn't have enough brick on it because they were a wood building. And so they had to do, and there was other things too, I believe, but that was like one of the big things. So they had to do some mitigations because,
But then they
But
picked.
they
the
picked what they
menu
wanted.
Right.
Okay.
Nobody forced them to.
Right.
absolutely.
Contribute 5,000 to.
And I
public
think
arts.
the other issue is if you don't think a minimum number of bricks is a requirement the city should be making, that's another issue. But the city has said you need X amount of bricks.
At one point that was said, and we are now proposing something different. We are also revising all the standards, right? So the
That's a
objective
different
of the
issue.
code is not to grant deviations, right? So that is just a result of specific conditions, or specific designs or specific, that contradict the code, then they have to justify. That's the other thing, they have to justify. So we are not, because in the past, I heard that we were selling,
Deviation.
deviations. That's not the case, because we fight for not granting deviations to comply with the code. But if it makes sense, so for instance, in this case, the wedding barn was not planned to be a brick building, right? So we could understand that,
Yeah.
the deviation had a purpose, right? So we recommended approval, and then, I don't remember exactly the deviations that the wedding barn
I
had,
don't
but I
know.
had a couple of deviations, and they had to mitigate. In their case, I think they had a contribution, but they also provided some public art on site.
How, it says the minimum value of the public art is to be $5,000. How are we, it's different if they hand us $5,000.
They-
But how are we valuing their art? If they
Usually,
install
they
art?
would give us an invoice, or they would give us, whatever. In the proposal, they would give us what it is,
Uh-huh,
right, that they're going to do.
yeah. Just
So,
because
for instance,
pricing of
the
art
Arlington-
is so,
Well, the Arlington, for instance, each of those sculptures were in the high 20s and 30,000. It's kind of, and they put that in their site plan, and in the end, I asked for the invoice, and it was not even to check, was to be able to have a comparison for the Wings of Joy, and those three combined was, I don't know, $80,000, $90,000, in that range.
wow, that's crazy.
The one from the Dwell, the same thing. Pretty expensive. So,
Okay,
So are you good with?
I'll
the
second,
proposal? Okay.
yeah.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you for all the discussion. Let's see. Okay, so we have, I think, gone through the agenda for today. Got my stack of papers here. There it is. All right, so we've discussed the meeting dates that will be this week to present the recommendation first to the land use.
The Land Development
Land
Code
Development,
Committee,
yes.
tomorrow.
Okay. And then our next.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you don't need to come. I mean, you're welcome to come, but tomorrow I'm going to present, the new recommendation,
Yep,
and saying that's the recommendation of staff and Public Art Board.
Can you
at
remind
this
me of the
point.
time tomorrow?
Tomorrow, the meeting, I need what time is the meeting? 2:30? 2:30.
and then the meeting on Wednesday?
4:30.
Okay, that one I have.
What is that?
That's the Land Planning Agency, so the other board. So we have two boards
Wait,
that
now I'm
recommend to
confused.
council.
Land Development is tomorrow.
The Land Development Code
Planning
Committee is
Wednesday.
tomorrow, and Land Planning Agency is Wednesday. Again, you don't need to come, you are welcome to come. And if you come, you would have, if you want to speak, you're going to speak during the public comment, right?
This one is being presented at which one?
To
Land
both of them.
Development
Oh, to
tomorrow.
both of them. Okay.
The two conversations that we had today are going to be presented to
Both
both
are
of
being
them.
presented
Planning
to
is
both
different
boards.
than land
Gotcha.
development?
Yes. Land Development is Tuesday at 2:30. Land Planning is 4:30 Wednesday. And that one we already have, I think we have the invite for.
So that one, I think it was canceled, because, so that was to discuss, because we did not have time,
Well, good thing we
that
met today.
I know, and Jillian was the one, I have to thank her, because she said, oh, could we have one just with
Before,
the,
yeah.
with all of us? And I said, well, we have Monday is the only day, that's why we rushed
That's
to
okay.
meet, so
Because
thank
I'd
you
rather discuss
all.
everything together
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of just like,
And this was just because it was time constraint, right? That, so the next next Public Art
Arts.
Board meeting is scheduled
September
for
11th.
September
September 11th.
11th. Let me see if we're going to have it or not. Because at this point, just to, I can update you on that, the opera is moving forward, you know, the idea, because we got, well, you all need to give the okay formally, right, for me to take to council. But we have some time. And
We don't have money.
no, we have money for that.
Oh, we have money for that, okay. But
Or
after
otherwise, I
that,
would not even
we're
have
done.
invited,
Okay.
you know.
After that, it's
Do
no.
we have a ton of time? Because we have to tell them officially.
So if that's the case, we'll have the 11 just to discuss that. Because now my time, I have to focus on the LDC to take to council, because council wants to
Okay,
have
the
it.
11th, we can take care
I
of
mean, it
the-
could be like a 5-minute, hey.
Yeah,
But-
just for you to
but
give
I
the
think
formal
We need to get that to council so we can tell them.
recommendation. And then I'll have to take to council, and then it's supposed to be February, I don't remember the 17th, I don't remember the date on the top of my head, but, you know, we have already a date, or tentative date for the opera. And with that, that's when our funds are very, very low now.
And
Some-
do we need to have an election?
We will have, so the next city council meeting, which is September 5th, is going to choose another member. I'll try to meet with this new member and try to,
On Thursday?
it's a Thursday because it's the,
Oh, because of Memorial Day.
it's budget, yeah, and there is a conflict with the school board, whatever, it's always on a Thursday, the first meeting in September.
Right.
So it's going to be on a Thursday, and then hopefully on the 11th, we'll have the new board member, and then you have to elect the new chair, and hopefully Lisa will be back too, because then it's easier for us to have the quorum.
Okay.
Is Adam still on the board?
Officially, yes. I don't know what is, I did not check with Dahlia, but I think he's been absent, so I don't know what is going on there, if he was on vacation with his kids, but we'll need to check that.
Okay. So we talked about future meeting dates. So I'm ready to ask for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are
We're a
adjourned.
team.
Thank you. Just a quick update, I don't know if I talked, but we sold 4 of the paintings.
That's exciting. Oh, how exciting.
So we had $550 deposited in our public art fund, and I already sent the check to Kim. Yeah. So we have here the sold ones.
Oh, and then those